Hello, good afternoon. My name is John Kowalski. I'm part of the marketing team here at Bitgardner, and welcome to our office hours. If you're unfamiliar with our office hours format, there'll be a shortened presentation, 20-25 minutes, followed by an open Q&A discussion to talk about any challenges you may be having at your own facilities, anything we can help with. Our presenter, he'll be on, as well as we have several members from our regional sales manager team and business line manager team. So lots of experts on the phone. If you have any questions, please log them in the chat function, and we'll get to them following the presentation. Also, this is being recorded, and you will be sent the link immediately, including the presentation. So with that, let me introduce to you our speaker, Mr. Corey Cohen. He is our Senior Applications Specialist. So Corey, with that, it is all yours, sir. And Corey, don't forget to unmute your presentation or your microphone.
That everyone. Thank you, John, for that introduction, and good afternoon to everybody. So today's a little exciting because this instrument you see right here in front of you is not only our newest instrument, it's actually new technology, new measurement technology overall. So I'm excited to have a discussion with you guys about this today. We're going to discuss a little bit about the different measurements that this instrument does and how that can be used to evaluate and control for grain and texture. And then, of course, as John mentioned, we will answer some questions following the presentation. So I think today's presentation is going to be a little longer than you might be used to, maybe 20-25 minutes, but we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so visual quality perception is influenced by things like color, gloss, and surface structure. And this is, of course, why the spectro2profiler, our newest instrument, measures color, gloss, and surface structure. So it combines different measurement techniques in one instrument. That was not the whole slide. Okay, technical difficulties. But so the measurement techniques it's combining are the color and gloss. So it does 45-0 color and it does 60-degree gloss, and these are well established measurements, international standards, very widely used. But of course it also does the grain measurement with a 2D reflectivity measurement and a 3D topography measurement. And that's going to help us analyze the grain and the texture in the surface. This is the first measurement technique, as mentioned, the 45C0 geometry. If you're unfamiliar with the C notation, that just means circumferential illumination, which our instruments have had for quite a while. So with this geometry, of course, the illumination comes in from the side at a 45-degree angle. The detector is normal to the surface, and this measures the 45-0 measures color as we see it, meaning gloss is going to affect, gloss and texture will affect how we see the color, just as how gloss and texture will affect how the instrument measures the color. So that's one of the standard measurement techniques that you might be familiar with. This is, of course, the other one, the 60-degree gloss measurement, with which many of our instruments are built with. And so with this type of measurement, you have the illumination again coming in from the side at a 60-degree angle, and the detector positioned at the opposite, the specular angle, as it's referred to, the opposite 60-degree angle. And so gloss ideally is measured on smooth, flat surfaces. That's where you get the best, most accurate results with a gloss meter. The problem with measuring gloss on textured parts is that it can cast shadows that falsify the results, as we're seeing from this diagram here on the right. That light is going to hit those structures, and it's going to bounce away from the detector just because of the physical structure of the surface, rather than any diffusing effects of being a low gloss surface. So 60-degree gloss is included in this instrument because it is such a commonly used measurement. And of course, it does have some value with many, many types of surfaces, but it's not the best way to evaluate structured surfaces. So what we have for that is the 2D reflectivity measurement. And this is one of the new types of measurement techniques we have in the spectro2 profiler. And so with this measurement, the light source is in line with the camera. So you see the illumination comes in from the side, and then there's a beam splitter that shoots that light straight down to the surface, and the camera is perfectly normal to the surface. So that light source is now in line with the camera. And so that's going to eliminate the casting of any shadows that you would get with that gloss setup where the light's coming in from the side. And so what happens here is that after the or while the surface is being illuminated, the camera is going to take a picture. That picture will be evaluated pixel by pixel, and it's going to give us a spatially resolved reflectivity measurement, meaning a map of the reflectivity that looks something like this. So here's a reflectivity map of a powder-coated surface. The dark areas are areas of low reflectivity. The lighter areas have higher reflectivity. And each pixel is individually assigned a reflectivity value. So the measurement is referenced to a light trap with a reflectivity of 0, and also to a matte white tile with a reflectivity of 2500, with the range of possible reflectivity values going up to 500,000 units. And so by assigning a reflectivity value to every pixel in this image and then averaging them, we arrive at the mean reflectivity value, which for the surface pictured here is 11,572. So here we have our two methods side by side. We have our traditional gloss measurement on the left, where that light is coming in at an angle. And then we have that 2D reflectivity measurement on the right, where that light is going to be in line with the camera, so you're not getting those shadows like you are with the gloss measurement throwing off your results. Also remember that reflectivity measurement, unlike gloss measurement, is spatially resolved, which means that we're actually measuring individually the reflectivity of a large number of spots on the surface rather than the gloss meter, which just sort of averages the gloss over the measurement area, the area that that light beam is hitting. All right, so color, gloss, and 2D reflectivity, and then to round out that set of measurement techniques we have here, we have the 3D topography measurement. So this is done by taking an image of the surface under 4 different illumination conditions, or 4 different illumination directions. So the surface is illuminated from 4 different directions, a picture taken under each lighting condition, and then based on the curvature and the shadows revealed by that illumination in the set of 4 pictures, a height map of the surface is calculated. So whereas the 2D measurement, the reflectivity measurement, measures how much light is being reflected by the surface, the 3D topography measurement maps the actual shape of the surface.
Corey, we lost your audio there. Did you accidentally mute yourself here?
By accident, just taking a coffee break. Thank you. Okay, so here we have a diagram for the 3D topography measurement, the setup for that type of measurement. And here in the side view, we see that the illumination is coming in from 60 degrees off the normal. And we know, of course, that's going to cast shadows on our structured surface, but here that's okay because that's actually what we're measuring with the device from the 4 different angles. And so by looking at the top view, we see that the 4 light sources are positioned 90 degrees from each other all around the sample. And the result of this measurement is this height map that we see here on the right. And so it's color coded so that the yellow portions or the light orange portions indicate the highest elevation, and the purple, the darker portions, indicate the lowest. Okay, so here we have our 4 measurement techniques: a color meter with a 45C0 geometry, 60-degree gloss measurement, 2D reflectivity, and 3D topography. And so for textured surfaces, for structured surfaces, this collection of evaluation methods will provide a complete analysis of your surface's appearance. And so when we look at different types of surfaces, what we've realized when developing this instrument is that different types of surfaces need to be evaluated in different ways. And so what we've done is developed certain algorithms for different types of textured materials. So currently we have 3 algorithms: the coarse paint algorithm, the leather-like algorithm, and the fine algorithm. So we're not going to have time to talk about all 3 today, but I chose the leather-like algorithm to talk about for today. This is for materials that have that leather-like structure that you can see from this image here. Things like, maybe vinyl upholstery or things like that could benefit from these types of measurements. So when we look at different samples with a leather-like grain, what are we seeing exactly? So some things that are going to jump out at us are the grain size, as well as the height or depth of the grain. And so these may not be things you notice specifically. These aren't necessarily things you're thinking about when you look at the surface, but they are definitely having an influence on our overall visual impression of that material. So in order to evaluate the surface, we'll need to quantify those things. And we do that by measuring the mean cell size, the CS value, and the mean cell amplitude, the CA value. So here's an image from the 3D topography measurement. And the image has been segmented into high spots and low spots. The orange spots are the high spots, and the purple spots are the low spots. And this is done using what we call the drop of water principle, where you can imagine it like rain falling on a surface, and that water is going to collect in the low spots and create these sort of rivers running between these higher spots. And these rivers define these closed cells. And this is referred to as watershed segmentation. So here's a kind of a side view of this principle. So we have the water following on the surface and collecting in those low spots. And we have these sort of valleys between the high spots that form these rivers. And wherever the water completely surrounds a high spot, this is defined as a cell. So here we have another topography image with we have the raw image on the left and the image with the watershed segmentation done on the right. And now once these cells have been segmented in this way, the instrument can then calculate the size of the individual cells, as well as the mean cell size by averaging the size of each of those cells. Just so you know, only the cells that are completely surrounded within the image are counted. So these cells that sort of run off to the edge where there's no water closing them out, these undefined cells at the edge are not included. So only the ones that are completely in the image are included. So here we have the mean cell size, CS, measured for these 3 leather-like samples that we saw before, and we see the watershed segmentation in each of these images. And we can see from both the image and the numbers that it looks like sample 2 has the largest overall cell size, the largest average cell size, while sample 3 has the smallest. And these are going to affect how we visually perceive the samples. So here we have pictured a master panel with 5 different sections, and each section has a different depth for the texture. So you can see the section at the top marked 100%, that has the deepest grain, and then as the percentage decreases, so too does the depth of the grain. So here what we'd like to do is to determine the mean cell amplitude of these samples. So again, here we have our topographical image, which again has been segmented using the watershed method, and the amplitude of a single cell can now be calculated as the maximum height within that cell, which is indicated by the red X's in this image, and then we can take the minimum height of the neighboring valley. And if you take the difference between the two, the maximum minus the minimum, you get the cell amplitude. So it's calculating the difference between all the highest local points and the nearest neighboring minimum points, and then averaging it to arrive at the mean cell amplitude CA. We can see here that the measured mean cell amplitude for each section of the panel is decreasing as you go down the panel. And so, of course, we know this value provides good correlation with visual grain depth. So here we have a set of values measured when using the leather-like algorithm. Note that as the mean cell amplitude decreases, so does the measured lightness value of the sample. And this again correlates with what we see visually. So here's a set of 4 new samples. And the texture here between the 4 different samples is more or less the same, but they look a little bit different visually despite having more or less the same topography. So this is where the reflectivity measurement comes in. The hills and valleys of these surfaces have different reflectivity from sample to sample, and that's what's causing us to see a visual difference in the appearance. So in order to control for this, in order to quantify it, we need to measure the reflectivity contrast, RC. So this type of measurement actually combines the 3D topography data with the 2D reflectivity data. So remember that each of those is spatially resolved. So each the topography and the reflectivity are measured pixel by pixel. And because those two things are measured with the same camera system, the instrument can overlay those two pictures. And so the pixel by pixel reflectivity data can be overlaid on top of the topography image. And so then now we can determine the reflectivity of the highest points and the lowest points, the hills and the valleys. And we can combine those values to calculate the reflectivity contrast using this equation at the bottom right, the difference divided by the sum. So if we look at the picture of the samples here on the top right, we can see that samples 1 and 3 appear to have the most texture. They appear to have the most depth, we would say. Sample 4 looks like it has a little bit less, and to me, sample 2 appears to be the most shallow. And if we look at the RC numbers, the reflectivity contrast, we see that this data correlates pretty well with that visual perception. So just to summarize this portion, the higher the difference in reflectivity between the high points and the low points, the higher the perceived depth of the grain. And this is going to cause the visual appearance of having more texture. And so here again, we have some measured values for these 4 samples. Here we have the reflectivity values, the overall reflectivity of the entire sample, the reflectivity of the hills, the reflectivity of the valleys, and the reflectivity contrast. And then below all that, we have the gloss values. So if we look at the reflectivity values, we are seeing some significant variation from sample to sample. But if we look at the gloss values alone, we're seeing that the gloss measurement alone can't really differentiate between these samples like the reflectivity numbers can. So that's it for the leather-like algorithm. Again, we're not, unfortunately, going to have time to cover the other ones today, but these algorithms can be used for, again, leather-like grains, coarse paint, which is often powder-coated materials that are very high gloss, and fine textures, fine textured paint, or as you're seeing, like in this keyboard here, sometimes our consumer electronics will have fine textures on them, and those things need to be controlled for as well. So we do have different algorithms that can work for different things. And even if your material doesn't perfectly fit into any one of these algorithms, it still could be that the measurements could be useful to you. So we do encourage you, if you're uncertain whether your material will be a good fit for this instrument, please reach out to us. You can send us samples that we can measure for you and share the results and discuss them with you and see if this may be right for you. So that's it. Our new spectro2 profiler with 45-0 color, 60-degree gloss, 2D reflectivity, and 3D topography. A new approach to combine 4 in one objective instrument. All right, now we shall open it up to questions. Back to you, John.
Great, Corey. Thank you. Great job here. I think one of our questions was answered right on that last slide. What is the area for 2D? You showed, what, 15 millimeter by 15 millimeter?
Yes,
right?
That is the area within the picture that the camera takes, yes.
Great. Also, a question here from Kumar. Are smoothness and texture the same?
Are smoothness and texture the same? I would say that they're opposites, but yeah, there's similar ways that you could describe a surface by how smooth it is, or conversely, how textured it is.
Okay. Follow-up question on the 2D area. Does the sample need to be flat within the 15 by 15?
Ooh, that's always tricky. Measuring curved surfaces. In general, what we recommend is that if you're measuring curved surfaces, you should only be comparing those measurements to other curved surfaces in general.
Mm-hmm. And I think a follow-up to that, I'm assuming not color dependent. Is that correct? Diane, why don't I unlock your microphone here so you can control the audio from your end. You can unmute yourself. If you wouldn't mind elaborating more on your question. It should be a little round circle in the upper right-hand corner of a microphone. You'll see 3 red dots. If you click on that microphone, it'll turn green and turn your audio on.
Can you hear me?
Ah, we can. Welcome.
Thanks. I was just wondering, like, sometimes when you laser scan stuff for dimensional issues, it's kind of color dependent, like the they can only see light colors or dark colors. I just wondered, I'm thinking the answer is it's not color dependent because it's a spectrophotometer as well, but just thought I would ask.
If you're referring to the reflectivity values and things like that, some of those
Yes.
calculations, it actually is somewhat color dependent. Yes. So this
It
is
is. Oh, okay.
actually part. This is actually a part that I cut out of this presentation in the interest of time. But since you asked, I have just a couple more slides to go over with you guys. Let me pull up the presentation.
You should be able to just share your screen, Corey.
Yeah. Where are you?
Good one to cut out, huh?
Figures right.
Right. Yeah, if anyone else has any other questions while Corey's pulling this up, please enter them in the chat section and we'll get to them.
I do have actually one more while he's pulling it up.
Sure.
You were demonstrating the leather and the RC values, it was like what, 0.29. I didn't memorize them, but like 0.29 and maybe 0.24 were the max and the min. Is it usually that? To me, that seems like a small number, but I guess I don't know. And leather seems to be quite an aggressive texture. I'm thinking like for fine plastics, what are the how many significant figures do you expect on your values? Are you going out like 3 places before you see a difference?
What do you think, Corey?
Hold on a sec.
I'm sorry, he's doing 2 things at once. I don't. No more questions. Sorry.
This is good. It's good to stump the Corey here. And if anyone too from the field team has any input, feel free to unmute yourself and chime in.
Oftentimes we can see differences in values when they're about when there's a 10% difference between one value and another.
Okay.
But it is really sample dependent. The values, the numbers can increase quite a bit with other samples. So the values that you saw were relatively small in comparison to some of the other samples that we've measured. While Corey's bringing up those slides, this device was really measured to evaluate samples the way that we see them with our own eyes. And as a result, color will play a role in the determination of things like cell amplitude and the measurement of that surface, mainly because and we often will call it a perceived cell amplitude because it isn't it isn't a true cell amplitude in the same way that you would measure, let's say, with a true profilometer. What we're doing is we're measuring the way that we see. So darker samples, the amplitude in those samples, based on the way that we see them with our eyes, look deeper than, let's say, a lighter sample, a light beige, for instance. Even though the grain depth may be identical in those two samples, our eyes will perceive the darker sample as being a deeper, having a deeper grain. And that's exactly what you're going to see with this particular device as well.
Okay.
So what we do recommend is if you're evaluating samples and comparing them to master standards, that you always maintain master standards in the same color so that you can compare apples to apples.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. That was Mike Peters. He's one of our sales managers that covers Canada for us, just a small territory. You doing okay up there, Mike?
Everything's good.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so I think Mike just explained a lot of it, but Yeah, so here these samples have the same grain pattern but different colors, and we can see visually that they do look different texturally. The darker colors tend to look more textured, have greater depth than the lighter colors, and that's reflected in the measured L values that we're seeing here. And so the reason for that is that when it has to do with the reflectivity contrast, right? When the contrast is high, you're seeing more depth. So what's happening is that when this light, when the incident light from the instrument or from wherever, the overhead light that we're using to look at this stuff, when it hits the structured surface, that some of that light's going to bounce around between the different structures in that surface, and that's going to lighten up the deeper parts of the surface. And so this effect is going to be more pronounced for the lighter colors because they reflect more light than the darker colors. So the lighter colors, those valleys, are going to appear lighter and sort of more washed out and more similar to the peaks than the darker colors, where the deeper parts are going to look darker and the higher parts are going to be lighter, and there's going to be more contrast. So yes, that's why it is color dependent.
Okay. Okay.
That help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else we can help with while we have you on the line, Diane?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Oh, we lost her.
Oh, share. Okay. Next question here. Are the gloss 60 and the color values collected by this instrument, the profiler, are they exactly the same as the data collected by the Bic gloss meter or Bic Mac Eye?
Not the Bic Mac Eye. Bic Mac Eye is our multi-angle meter, and it's directional. So whereas with that instrument, the light's coming from one direction, this instrument is circumferential, as solid color spectras tend to be. So the measurements you get with this, the color and gloss, will be comparable to our gloss meters and our other color meter, our spectro2 guide and spectro2 go meters, but they will not be comparable to the Bic Mac.
That's just because of the multi-angle measurement.
Right.
Okay, great. Other questions? If anyone has anything, please, we have a lot of time left. Just plug them into the chat function and we'll get to them. Corey, what are your, or anyone from the field, what are some frequent questions you guys get, regarding this instrument and measuring textures?
One of the other things that comes up a lot is, whether or not this product can be used, or this device can be used to troubleshoot production, mainly mold degradation. And the answer to that is yes. We've been doing studies with it, not only on the product, but also on the molds themselves, and have very good results with respect to that. So, there is the possibility of using this more as a production troubleshooting device, as well as a quality control device for finished products.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. So in general, the cell size calculations, the C values, are better for developing textures and trying to get your texture right in like an R&D setting, and the reflectivity values, which measure how light bounces off of the surface, can be useful for QC when your mold might be aging and causing visual differences in the product.
Great, thank you. Question in here too, with these new measurements and numbers, what is considered significant? What would customers look for or be kind of red flag areas?
That's going to be on a case-by-case basis, and it's really, you know, this device was really developed so that, you know, especially with your finished product, it's great as a quality control that is there to support visual analysis and, you know, to give you numerical data that will help you support that visual analysis. But you know, there's a bit of work, you know, at the front end you know, obviously, you know, if you've been manufacturing your product for a certain period of time, you have an idea of what makes for an acceptable product versus an unacceptable end product. So you can put tolerances, of course, into this device so that you can measure according to what you would consider an acceptable product, and then have a, you know, a go no go based on that data.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely, you know, case by case, like you said, the front end of your answer. It's all going to differ. What else? Anybody having some unique challenges or issues at their own facility that we can assist with? You know, it doesn't have to be limited to the spectro2profiler. That's what we're here about today. But if you know, we have time and we have a lot of experts on the phone here, we're willing and happy to help you any way we can.
This is Diane again.
Corey.
Let me think about it, and this is Diane again.
Can you be a regular? I get sick of hearing Corey talk all the time. No offense, Corey.
Yeah, let me think about it, and I can reach out. I guess I don't know. How do I get an email address, or how do you get my email address?
I can shoot you a note.
Okay,
cool. You'll receive an automated response after this presentation with a link to the presentation.
Okay.
You can just reply to that too. It'll come to us in marketing, and we can get it to the appropriate sales rep in your region.
Okay, perfect.
Where are you located, could I ask?
Holland, Michigan.
Okay, it'd be Bob Santine, who covers Michigan and the Ohio Valley. But I can hook you up with him.
Perfect.
Great.
John, just one other question, just to follow up on the question about, you know, does it work the same way as some of our other devices? One thing to maybe we should add is the fact that it does work off of the same software platform. So all of our devices work off of Smart Chart. So if you're already using one of our BIC devices and using the software that comes with those devices, this profiler works off of the same Smart Chart software platform. So you don't have to, you know, learn a new software package in order to maintain, you know, it can be saved in essentially the same database.
Excellent.
The software is included with the instrument.
Yep. Quiet bunch today. Anybody else from the field? Not you, Mike Peters. We've heard enough of you today.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But anyone else have some unique success stories or some kind of aha moments when doing trials or tests with customers without naming the customers using this?
Hi, this is Geraldine. Although we didn't go over the algorithm today, the rough texture algorithm does not have reflectivity data. And Corey, hopefully maybe we'll explain that later on in a later web seminar, or office hours. But when it comes to that algorithm, one of the best ways to QC is the amplitude for that one. So, you know, reflectivity contrast, as Corey mentioned earlier, becomes really important in the leather-like algorithm. And you can also get reflectivity data out of the fine grain, but without that being reflectivity, the most commonly specified or toleranced scale, without reflectivity in the rough texture algorithm, the amplitude became very, very important. So that's, I can mention that.
Good. Thanks, Geraldine, for bringing that up. Important stuff. And that was Geraldine Camp. She's our regional sales manager of the Midwest. So if you're located there, you probably have talked to her. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you to do so because she's a lovely lady. Quiet group today. We can give it a couple more minutes. You know, if anyone has any questions or any additional field input, otherwise we can wrap it up here in a minute or so.
Hey, John, I think if you rapped a little bit, that might encourage questions.
Yeah, maybe it might scare some people. We're recording some training videos earlier, and I found a new hidden talent I have.
Yeah, he's really great at freestyling.
Yeah. So anyway, like I mentioned, all the attendees are going to get a automated response with a link to the recording. If you'd like to listen to it later, share it with colleagues. If you have any questions for anybody on the team here, you can simply hit reply. It'll come to us in marketing, and we'll get it to the right account manager. Also, we have we're doing office hours kind of throughout the end of the year, monthly, different topics. You'll see some invites for that. We're also having kind of our full-blown web seminars, which are roughly 45-minute presentations as well. So we're doing them some out of the U.S. here. Some are coming out of our German headquarters also. So be on the lookout for those invites. And if there's anything we can do to support you, if it's a company or a team webinar or demonstration of anything we can do, please reach out. We'd be happy to help you. So I think with that, let's wrap it up. Corey, very appreciative of your insight knowledge here. Same thank you, Mike, up in Canada for your input, as well as you, Geraldine, in Chicago. So appreciate everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on future Bic Gardner web seminars. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks.